They raised their weapons and fired 3 bullets directly at her face, watching as the glass shattered and her image disappeared forever. But here's the terrifying truth that would haunt investigators for months. Maya Chen was never actually in that room. What you're about to hear is the story of how a mirror, a desperate plan, and one woman's genius turned a deadly trap into the most elaborate deception in criminal history. This is the case that made detectives question everything they thought they knew about reality itself. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. On the night of October 15, 2023, the Riverside Heights Police Department received what seemed like a routine domestic disturbance call. The address was 1247 Maple Grove Avenue, a modest 2-story house nestled in one of the city's quieter neighborhoods. Officer Sarah Martinez was the first to respond, expecting nothing more than another noise complaint or minor argument between neighbors. She had no idea she was about to witness something that would redefine her understanding of criminal investigation. The call had come in at exactly 11:48 p.m. from Mrs. Eleanor Hutchinson, an elderly neighbor who lived across the street. She reported hearing what sounded like gunshots, followed by the distinctive crash of breaking glass. Mrs. Hutchinson was known in the neighborhood as someone who kept to herself, rarely involving herself in other people's business, which made her decision to call the police all the more significant. She had been watching her late-night television programs when the sounds jolted her from her usual routine. As Officer Martinez pulled up to the house, she immediately noticed that something was wrong. The large living room window facing the street was completely shattered, with fragments of glass scattered across the front lawn like deadly confetti. The lights inside the house were still on, casting an eerie glow through the jagged remains of what had once been a picture window. Martinez called for backup immediately, her instincts telling her that this was far more serious than a simple domestic dispute. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What Officer Martinez couldn't have known as she approached the house was that she was stepping into the final act of a 3-month-long chess game between a brilliant software engineer and one of the city's most dangerous criminal organizations. Maya Chen had spent weeks preparing for this exact moment, turning her own home into an elaborate stage where she would either save her life or lose it entirely. Every detail had been calculated, every contingency planned for, and every element of the deception had been tested multiple times in the weeks leading up to this night. The house at 1247 Maple Grove Avenue had been Maya's home for just over 2 years. She had purchased it specifically for its layout and the large windows that provided clear sightlines from the street. What had initially attracted her as a feature for natural lighting had become the cornerstone of her survival plan. The living room was positioned perfectly for her purposes, with the main seating area clearly visible to anyone looking through the front window. Maya had spent countless hours studying the angles, measuring the distances, and calculating the precise positioning that would make her plan work. Vincent Russo and his crew had been watching Maya's house for 3 weeks, learning her routines and identifying the perfect moment to strike. They knew that every night at approximately 11:45 p.m., Maya would settle into her favorite cream-colored armchair in the living room, working on her laptop while sipping chamomile tea. This routine had been so consistent that Vincent felt confident they could predict her exact location at any given time. What he didn't realize was that Maya had been deliberately establishing this routine for his benefit, creating the predictable pattern that would ultimately lead to his downfall. The planning phase of Maya's deception had required her to think like both the hunter and the hunted. She needed to understand exactly how Vincent's team would approach the assassination, what vantage points they would use, and how they would confirm their target before taking the shot. Maya had spent hours researching professional killing methods, studying criminal cases, and even consulting with a private security expert under the pretense of improving her home security. Every piece of information she gathered contributed to her understanding of how to create the perfect illusion. The most crucial element of Maya's plan was timing. She knew that Vincent's team would want to strike quickly and efficiently, minimizing their exposure and the risk of being caught. This meant they would likely observe her routine for a few minutes to confirm she was in position, then take their shots and leave immediately. Maya had calculated that she would have approximately a 3-minute window from the time they arrived to the moment they would attempt to verify their kill. Everything depended on her ability to execute her plan flawlessly within that narrow time frame. As Officer Martinez radioed for additional units and began her approach to the house, she had no way of knowing that the most sophisticated criminal deception in the city's history was about to be revealed. The shattered glass, the bullet holes, and the absence of any visible victim would soon present investigators with a puzzle that challenged everything they thought they understood about crime scene analysis. Maya Chen's desperate gamble was about to pay off in ways that would shock even her. Maya Chen had been planning this moment for exactly 3 months and 12 days. Not because she wanted to, but because her life depended on it. The 32-year-old software engineer had discovered something she wasn't supposed to see, something that put her at the top of a very dangerous list. Vincent Russo and his crew weren't the type of people who forgave and forgot. They were the type who made problems disappear permanently. The discovery that had sealed Maya's fate happened on a quiet Tuesday morning in July while she was conducting routine maintenance on the cryptocurrency exchange platform for her employer, TechFlow Dynamics. Maya had always been thorough in her work, often diving deeper into system analyses than her colleagues thought necessary. This particular morning, she was investigating unusual transaction patterns that had been flagging the company's automated monitoring systems. What started as a simple database query quickly evolved into something far more sinister. Hidden within seemingly legitimate cryptocurrency transactions, Maya discovered a sophisticated money laundering operation that was processing millions of dollars through TechFlow's platform. The transactions were expertly disguised, broken into small amounts, and routed through multiple accounts to avoid detection. But Maya's analytical mind and her custom-built monitoring algorithms had identified patterns that others had missed. As she dug deeper, she realized that TechFlow wasn't just facilitating money laundering, they were actively participating in it. The paper trail led Maya to a series of encrypted communications between TechFlow executives and external contacts. Using her advanced decryption skills, Maya was able to break through several layers of security and access messages that revealed the true scope of the operation. Vincent Russo's name appeared repeatedly in these communications, along with references to cleanup operations and permanent solutions for people who posed threats to their business. Maya quickly realized she wasn't just looking at financial crimes, she was uncovering evidence of murder. Maya's first instinct was to contact law enforcement immediately, but further investigation revealed that several police officers and federal agents were mentioned in the communications as being on Vincent's payroll. She couldn't trust the traditional channels of justice, especially when she discovered that 2 previous whistleblowers had died in suspicious accidents within months of threatening to expose similar operations. Maya understood that she was completely on her own, facing an organization with the resources and connections to eliminate anyone who threatened their lucrative criminal empire. The moment Maya realized her computer access was being monitored, she knew her time was running out. Vincent's organization had sophisticated cybersecurity measures in place, and they would soon discover that someone had been accessing their encrypted communications. Maya had perhaps a few days, maybe a week at most, before they identified her as the source of the security breach. She needed a plan that would not only save her life but also ensure that the evidence she had gathered would reach the authorities. Maya's background in software engineering and her hobby interest in optical physics suddenly became the foundation for her survival strategy. She remembered reading about historical cases where mirrors and optical illusions had been used in espionage and military deception. The concept of using reflection and misdirection to create false images had been employed by intelligence agencies during World War II, and Maya began to wonder if she could adapt these principles to her situation. The plan that began to form in Maya's mind was audacious and incredibly risky. She would need to convince Vincent's killers that they had successfully murdered her while actually remaining alive to provide testimony against them. This would require creating a convincing illusion that could fool trained assassins while simultaneously gathering evidence of their attempted murder. Maya knew that if her deception failed, even slightly, she would be dead within minutes. Maya's first step was to research every detail she could find about Vincent Russo and his operational methods. She hacked into surveillance systems around the city, tracking the movements of known associates and identifying patterns in their behavior. She discovered that Vincent's team preferred to work at night, typically between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., when police patrols were lighter and witnesses were scarce. They favored quick, efficient kills that could be staged to look like robberies or random violence. The psychological profile Maya developed of Vincent's team revealed that they were methodical but not particularly creative. They relied on proven methods and familiar tactics, which meant they would likely approach her assassination in a predictable manner. This predictability was exactly what Maya needed to exploit. If she could anticipate their actions, she could prepare a deception that would turn their own thoroughness against them. Maya also realized that Vincent's team would need to confirm their kill before leaving the scene. Professional assassins don't simply assume their target is dead, they verify it. This requirement would give Maya a crucial window of opportunity if she could create a convincing enough illusion. The killers would need to see what they believed was her dead body, but Maya planned to give them something else entirely. Over the following weeks, Maya began implementing her plan with the precision of a master strategist. Every aspect of her preparation was carefully calculated to create the perfect illusion while providing her with multiple layers of protection. She understood that she would only get one chance to execute her deception, and failure would mean certain death. The key to Maya's plan lay in an antique mirror she'd purchased from an estate sale 2 months earlier. It wasn't just any mirror, it was a custom-built two-way surveillance mirror from the 1940s, originally used in police interrogation rooms. Maya had discovered its unique properties by accident when she noticed how it reflected light differently depending on the angle and lighting conditions. The mirror had belonged to Detective Robert Caldwell, a legendary investigator who had used it in his private office during the 1940s and 1950s. According to the estate sale documentation, Detective Caldwell had been fascinated by the psychological aspects of criminal investigation and had installed the two-way mirror to observe suspects' behavior when they thought they were alone. The mirror's construction was far more sophisticated than modern two-way mirrors, incorporating hand-ground glass and precision-angled silvering that created incredibly realistic reflections under specific lighting conditions. Maya's discovery of the mirror's special properties happened during a late evening when she was rearranging her living room furniture. As she moved a floor lamp, the changing light patterns suddenly caused the mirror to display what appeared to be a perfect image of someone sitting in a chair that was actually positioned several feet away from where the reflection seemed to show. Intrigued by this optical anomaly, Maya began experimenting with different lighting angles and positions. Through careful experimentation, Maya discovered that the mirror's unique construction allowed it to capture and redirect light in ways that could create convincing illusions. By positioning lights at specific angles below the mirror's line of sight, she could project reflections that appeared to show someone in the room when no one was actually there. The effect was so convincing that even Maya herself was startled the first time she successfully created a false reflection of her own image. Working late into countless nights, Maya had carefully modified her living room to create the perfect optical illusion. She installed precise lighting systems throughout the room, including hidden LED strips in the basement that could be controlled remotely. The positioning of each light had to be calculated to the exact degree, taking into account the reflection angles, the distance from the mirror, and the viewing perspective from outside the house. Maya's engineering background proved invaluable as she worked to perfect the illusion. She used 3D modeling software to map out every angle and reflection, ensuring that the false image would be visible from the exact position where an assassin would likely position themselves outside her front window. The calculations required her to consider factors such as the height of the window sill, the typical stance of a person looking through the window, and the curvature of the antique mirror's surface. The most challenging aspect of creating the illusion was making it appear natural and lifelike. Maya couldn't simply project a static image, she needed to create the impression of a living person going about their normal evening routine. This required her to develop a complex system of programmable lights that could simulate movement and create shadows that would suggest someone shifting position in their chair or reaching for objects on a nearby table. Maya spent weeks perfecting the timing and sequencing of her lighting system. She programmed multiple scenarios that could simulate different activities: reading a book, working on a laptop, drinking tea, or simply sitting quietly. Each scenario required different lighting patterns and shadow movements to create a convincing illusion. Maya tested each sequence repeatedly, viewing it from various angles outside her house to ensure it would fool someone conducting surveillance. The basement component of Maya's plan required significant preparation and modification. She needed to create a secure hiding place where she could control the lighting system while remaining completely hidden from anyone searching the house. Maya reinforced a utility closet in her basement, installing soundproofing materials and creating a hidden entrance that would be nearly impossible to detect during a casual search. Inside her basement command center, Maya installed multiple monitors that displayed feeds from security cameras positioned throughout her house and yard. These cameras would allow her to track the movements of Vincent's team from the moment they arrived until they left the scene. Maya also installed backup power systems and redundant communication equipment, ensuring that her plan could continue even if the house's main power was compromised. The mirror's positioning required millimeter-perfect precision. Maya spent an entire weekend making minute adjustments to its angle and height, testing each modification with her lighting system until she achieved the perfect illusion. The mirror had to be angled at exactly 47.3 degrees to catch the reflection from the basement lighting system while appearing completely natural to someone viewing it from the front of the house. Maya also had to consider the seasonal changes in ambient lighting that might affect her illusion. She tested her system during different weather conditions and at various times of night, making adjustments to ensure that the false reflection would be convincing regardless of external factors. The antique mirror's age actually worked in her favor, as its slightly irregular surface created subtle variations in the reflection that made it appear more lifelike than a modern perfectly flat mirror would have. The final test of Maya's mirror system came when she asked her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, to help with what she described as a security test for her home alarm system. Mrs. Patterson agreed to walk past Maya's front window at a specific time while Maya activated her illusion from the basement. The neighbor later confirmed that she had clearly seen Maya sitting in her living room chair, never suspecting that she was actually looking at an elaborate optical deception. Vincent Russo parked his black sedan 3 blocks away from Maple Grove Avenue at exactly 11:30 p.m. He'd brought 2 of his most trusted associates, Marcus Webb, a former military sniper with a reputation for clean kills, and Tony Castellano, whose expertise lay in making crime scenes tell whatever story they needed them to tell. This job was supposed to be straightforward. Maya Chen had seen too much, and loose ends in Vincent's line of work had a way of becoming deadly liabilities. Vincent had been running criminal operations in Riverside Heights for over 15 years, building a network that stretched from street-level drug dealing to high-level corporate corruption. His organization had survived and thrived because Vincent understood the importance of eliminating threats before they could cause serious damage. Maya Chen represented exactly the kind of threat that could bring down everything he had built, and Vincent had learned long ago that hesitation in such situations was often fatal. Marcus Webb was Vincent's go-to solution for problems that required permanent resolution. The 38-year-old former Marine had served 3 tours in Afghanistan before being dishonorably discharged for what the military termed excessive force during civilian operations. Marcus had found new purpose working for Vincent, where his particular skills were not only appreciated but generously compensated. Tonight's job was routine for Marcus: a single target, clear line of sight, and a simple escape route. Tony Castellano's role in the operation was equally important but less visible. As a former crime scene investigator who had been quietly retired from the police force due to evidence tampering allegations, Tony understood exactly how to manipulate physical evidence to support whatever narrative Vincent needed. After Marcus completed the shooting, Tony would enter the house and arrange the scene to look like a robbery gone wrong, complete with missing valuables and signs of forced entry. As they approached the house, Vincent felt the familiar calm that came with executing a well-planned operation. They had been watching Maya's routines for 3 weeks, documenting her daily schedule and identifying the optimal time for their attack. Every night at 11:45 p.m., Maya would settle into her living room chair with her laptop, positioning herself perfectly for Marcus's shot through the front window. The large window provided an unobstructed view of the target area, and the distance was well within Marcus's effective range. Vincent's surveillance of Maya had revealed that she lived alone and maintained fairly regular habits. She worked from home most days, rarely had visitors, and seemed to follow a predictable routine that made her an easy target. Vincent had been careful to vary his team's observation schedule to avoid establishing any patterns that might alert Maya to their presence, but 3 weeks of surveillance had convinced him that Maya was completely unaware of the danger she was in. The neighborhood of Maple Grove Avenue was ideal for Vincent's purposes. The houses were spaced far enough apart that gunshots might go unnoticed, especially if they used suppressed weapons. The street lighting was minimal, providing plenty of shadows for concealment, and the local police patrol schedule showed that officers typically didn't pass through the area between 11 p.m. and midnight. Vincent had chosen this night specifically because weather reports predicted a light rain that would further reduce visibility and mask any sounds. Marcus had spent the previous afternoon conducting a final reconnaissance of the shooting position. He had identified a spot behind a large oak tree in the yard across the street that provided perfect concealment while offering a clear shot at Maya's usual position in the living room. The angle was ideal, and Marcus had confirmed that there were no obstructions that might deflect his bullet. He estimated the distance at approximately 75 yards, an easy shot for someone with his training and experience. What Vincent's team couldn't have known was that Maya had been monitoring their surveillance activities for the past 2 weeks. Using a combination of hidden cameras and motion sensors around her property, Maya had identified the patterns in their observation schedule and had begun to anticipate their arrival. She knew they were coming tonight because she had intercepted their communications through the security vulnerability she had discovered in their encrypted messaging system. Maya's counter-surveillance had revealed crucial details about Vincent's operational methods. She knew that Marcus preferred to take his shots from elevated positions when possible, and she had observed him studying her front window from multiple angles. She also knew that Tony would enter the house after the shooting to manipulate the crime scene, which meant her deception needed to fool not just the initial assassination team but also someone with professional crime scene experience. The psychological profile Maya had developed of Vincent's team during her surveillance indicated that they were confident, methodical, and perhaps slightly overconfident in their ability. This overconfidence was exactly what Maya planned to exploit. Professional criminals often become set in their ways, relying on tactics that have worked in the past without considering that their targets might be equally intelligent and as Vincent's team moved into position around Maya's house, they followed their standard operational protocol with military precision. Marcus took his position behind the oak tree and began setting up his rifle, while Tony positioned himself near the front of the house to monitor for any unexpected. Vincent remained in the car, maintaining radio contact with both team members and ready to coordinate the extraction once the job was complete. Marcus looked through his rifle scope at Maya's front window and smiled grimly. There she was, exactly where she was supposed to be, sitting in her cream-colored chair working on her laptop, just as she had every night for the past 3 weeks. The target was clearly visible, with all lit and completely stationary. Marcus had made far more difficult shots under much worse conditions. This would be simple, clean, and over in seconds. What Marcus was actually seeing through his scope was Maya's carefully crafted optical illusion, projected by the antique mirror and her precisely positioned lighting system. The real Maya was safely hidden in her basement command center, watching Marcus and his team through her security cameras and preparing to trigger the next phase of her desperate plan. In less than 3 minutes, Marcus would pull the trigger and destroy what he believed was Maya Chen, never realizing that he was shooting at nothing more than light and reflection. At 11:44 p.m., Maya took her position in the basement of her house, carefully hidden behind the steel utility panel she had reinforced weeks earlier. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she watched Vincent's team through the security camera feeds displayed on her monitors. Use cloud machine learning, your application interprets images, display the system. Above her, the living room was perfectly lit according to her calculations, with the antique mirror positioned at precisely 47.3 degrees to catch the reflection from the basement's hidden lighting system. Maya's command center in the basement represented months of careful preparation and engineering. She had installed multiple monitors, showing feeds from 8 different security cameras positioned throughout her property and inside her house. Each camera provided a different angle of view, allowing her to track the movements of Vincent's team with precision. The monitors were arranged in a semicircle around her position, giving her a comprehensive view of the unfolding situation without requiring her to move or make any sound that might compromise her hiding place. The reinforced utility panel that concealed Maya's position had been carefully modified to provide maximum protection while allowing her to operate her equipment. She had installed soundproofing materials and ensured that no light from her monitors would be visible from outside the concealed area. The panel could be locked from the inside and appeared to be nothing more than standard basement infrastructure to anyone conducting a casual search of the house. Through her camera feed, Maya watched Marcus Webb take his position behind the oak tree across the street. She could see him setting up his rifle with professional efficiency, adjusting his scope and checking his line of sight to her front window. Maya's stomach churned as she realized that in a few minutes, this man would be trying to kill her. The only thing standing between her and death was an antique mirror and her ability to execute a plan that had never been tested under real-world conditions. Maya activated her lighting system through a sophisticated remote control interface she had programmed herself. The system allowed her to control dozens of individual LED lights positioned throughout her basement and concealed in various locations around her living room. Each light could be adjusted for brightness, color, temperature, and direction, allowing Maya to create incredibly precise lighting effects that would be projected through the antique mirror above. The illusion Maya was creating required her to simulate her own presence in the living room chair. She had spent weeks programming lighting sequences that would create convincing shadows and movements, suggesting someone shifting position, reaching for objects, or simply breathing. The antique mirror's unique properties amplified these subtle lighting changes, creating a reflection that appeared remarkably lifelike when viewed from Marcus's position across the street. Maya's remote control system also included audio components that could simulate the sounds of normal evening activities. Hidden speakers in the living room could produce the soft clicking of laptop keys, the rustle of papers, or the gentle clink of a teacup being set down on a table. These audio cues would reinforce the visual illusion and make it even more convincing to anyone conducting surveillance of the house. As Maya fine-tuned her illusion, she monitored the radio communications between Vincent's team members through a scanner she had programmed to intercept their encrypted frequencies. Breaking their communication encryption had been one of her first priorities when she realized she was being hunted. Maya could hear Marcus reporting his position and confirming that the target was visible in the front window. Vincent's voice came through clearly as he coordinated the final approach to her house. The psychological pressure Maya was experiencing was almost overwhelming. She was essentially orchestrating her own fake murder while being hunted by professional killers who would show no mercy if they discovered her deception. Every sound from above, every shadow that moved across her monitors, every change in the radio chatter made her heart race with the fear that something had gone wrong with her plan. Maya checked and rechecked every component of her system during the tense minutes before the attack. Her backup power supplies were functioning normally. Her communication equipment was ready to alert police at the crucial moment, and her recording devices were capturing everything that was happening. She had created multiple redundancies for every critical system, understanding that equipment failure at the wrong moment would mean her death. Through her security cameras, Maya could see Tony Castellano positioning himself near the back of her house. She knew that Tony's role was to enter the house after the shooting and manipulate the crime scene to support whatever cover story Vincent had planned. Maya had prepared for this eventuality by creating hidden cameras throughout her house that would record Tony's activities, providing additional evidence of the criminal conspiracy. Maya's lighting system was designed to respond to her commands with split-second timing. She had programmed several different scenarios that could be triggered instantly depending on how the situation developed. If Marcus took longer than expected to set up his shot, Maya could simulate restlessness or movement. If the attack came sooner than anticipated, she could freeze the illusion to provide Marcus with a perfect target. The most nerve-wracking aspect of Maya's situation was that she couldn't see Marcus's exact position through her scope. While her security cameras showed his general location behind the oak tree, she couldn't tell precisely when he would be ready to fire. Maya had to rely on the radio communications she was intercepting and her analysis of Marcus's behavior patterns to predict the timing of the attack. As 11:47 p.m. approached, Maya made final adjustments to her illusion and prepared to execute the most dangerous gamble of her life. Through her monitors, she could see that Marcus appeared to be in his final shooting position, and Vincent's radio chatter suggested that the attack was imminent. Maya's reflection was clearly visible in the living room window, created by the perfect interaction between her basement lighting and the antique mirror above. Maya activated her recording systems to capture every moment of the coming attack. This evidence would be crucial not only for prosecuting Vincent's team but also for proving that she had acted in self-defense and had not staged the entire scenario for some other purpose. The recordings would show clearly that she had been the target of an unprovoked assassination attempt by professional criminals. Vincent peered through night vision binoculars at Maya's front window and felt a surge of satisfaction wash over him. There she was, exactly where she was supposed to be, completely oblivious to her fate. Maya appeared to be typing on her laptop, her face clearly visible in the soft glow of the room's lighting. Everything was proceeding according to plan, and Vincent felt the familiar calm that came with executing a perfectly orchestrated operation. Through his radio, Vincent coordinated the final moments of the attack with military precision. Marcus confirmed his position and reported that he had a clear shot. Tony acknowledged his readiness to enter the house immediately after the shooting to stage the crime scene. The timing was critical. They needed to complete the entire operation and be gone from the neighborhood within 5 minutes to minimize the risk of being observed or caught by responding police units. Marcus adjusted his rifle scope one final time, bringing Maya's image into perfect focus. Through the crosshairs, he could see her clearly illuminated figure sitting motionless in the cream-colored chair. She appeared to be completely absorbed in whatever she was working on, showing no signs of awareness that death was approaching. Marcus had eliminated dozens of targets over the years, but few had been as perfectly positioned and unaware as Maya Chen appeared to be tonight. The professional satisfaction Marcus felt in having such an ideal shooting situation was tempered by his awareness that this job was more significant than his usual assignments. Maya Chen wasn't just another business rival or inconvenient witness, she represented a genuine threat to Vincent's entire organization. Her death needed to appear completely random and unconnected to Vincent's criminal activities, which meant Marcus needed to ensure his shots were both fatal and consistent with a robbery gone wrong. Vincent's voice came through Marcus's earpiece with quiet authority. "Target is confirmed. You are cleared to engage." Marcus took a deep breath, steadied his aim, and began his final firing sequence. His training had taught him to take 3 rapid shots to ensure the target was neutralized, then immediately begin his extraction. There could be no room for error or hesitation once he pulled the trigger. What Marcus saw through his scope appeared to be Maya Chen in her typical evening routine, but the reality was far different. The figure he was aiming at was nothing more than an elaborate optical illusion created by Maya's antique mirror and precisely positioned lighting system. The real Maya was safely hidden in her basement command center, watching Marcus prepare to shoot at her reflection while recording every moment of the attempted murder. Marcus squeezed the trigger 3 times in rapid succession, his rifle barely moving between shots due to his expert marksmanship and the weapon's sophisticated recoil management system. The suppressed gunfire was barely audible beyond a few yards, creating only soft metallic clicks that would be easily mistaken for normal nighttime sounds. Through his scope, Marcus watched with professional satisfaction as his bullets found their target. The bullets struck the antique mirror with devastating effect, shattering the glass into thousands of fragments that exploded inward toward the living room. The sound of breaking glass was much louder than the suppressed gunfire, creating the kind of noise that might alert neighbors and bring police to investigate. Marcus watched as Maya's image disappeared instantly in the shower of glass and reflected light, convinced that he had just witnessed the successful elimination of their target. Vincent felt a surge of relief as he heard the distinctive sound of shattering glass through his radio link with Marcus. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned, and Maya Chen was no longer a threat to his organization. Vincent immediately initiated the next phase of their plan, instructing Tony to enter the house and stage the crime scene while Marcus began his extraction from the shooting position. In her basement hiding place, Maya watched her carefully crafted illusion destroyed by Marcus's bullets. The antique mirror that had been the cornerstone of her deception was now nothing more than scattered fragments, but it had served its purpose perfectly. Marcus and Vincent believed they had just killed her, which meant the most dangerous part of her plan was complete. Now came the second phase, gathering evidence of their crimes while they believed she was dead. Maya's security cameras captured every detail of Marcus's shooting sequence and the immediate aftermath. The footage clearly showed Marcus taking deliberate aim at what he believed was a human target and firing with lethal intent. This evidence, combined with the intercepted radio communications, would provide prosecutors with irrefutable proof of attempted murder and criminal conspiracy. Tony Castellano approached the house from the rear, using lock-picking tools to gain entry through the back door. Maya watched his progress through her internal security cameras, knowing that Tony's role was to create physical evidence supporting the robbery scenario Vincent had planned. Tony would remove certain valuables, damage furniture to suggest a struggle, and position Maya's supposed body to tell the story Vincent needed investigators to believe. The psychological impact of watching professional criminals celebrate what they believed was her murder was almost overwhelming for Maya. Through her radio scanner she could hear Vincent congratulating Marcus on a successful shot and Tony reporting his entry into the house. These men genuinely believed they had just killed her, and their casual business-like approach to murder demonstrated the kind of ruthless criminal organization she was fighting against. Maya activated the silent alarm system she had installed weeks earlier, sending an encrypted signal directly to a secure police communication channel she had identified during her research. The signal included her GPS coordinates, a brief description of the armed intruders in her house, and a code indicating that this was related to organized criminal activity. Maya had timed this alert to arrive at the police station approximately 3 minutes after Marcus was shooting, giving Vincent's team enough time to fully commit to their crime scene manipulation. As Tony began searching the house for Maya's body, his confusion was evident through the radio communications Maya was monitoring. Tony reported that there was no body in the living room, despite the obvious evidence of gunfire and the destroyed window. Marcus insisted that his shots had been perfect and that the target had been clearly eliminated, but the absence of any physical remains was creating doubt and panic within Vincent's team. Maya knew that Tony's training as a former crime scene investigator would make him suspicious of the situation he was finding. The lack of blood, body, or any physical evidence of a victim would contradict everything Tony knew about gunshot wounds and ballistics. Maya was counting on this confusion to keep Vincent's team in the house long enough for police to arrive and catch them in the act.
Officer Sarah Martinez arrived at 1247 Maple Grove Avenue at 11:52 p.m., just as Vincent's crew was examining the shattered mirror fragments in Maya's living room. The scene that greeted her was unlike anything she had encountered in her 12 years of police work.
Three armed men stood in a destroyed living room surrounded by glass fragments and bullet holes, but there was no body, no blood evidence that would indicate a fatal shooting, and no sign of any victim. Martinez immediately recognized that she was dealing with something far more serious than the domestic disturbance call that had brought her to the scene. The presence of three armed individuals in a house with obvious gunfire damage indicated a major crime in progress. Martinez called for immediate backup while drawing her service weapon and taking cover behind her patrol car, knowing that she was potentially facing professional criminals who had already demonstrated their willingness to use deadly force. The police response to Maya's silent alarm had been faster than she had anticipated, with Officer Martinez arriving nearly 2 minutes earlier than Maya's calculations had predicted. This timing worked in Maya's favor, as Vincent's team was still inside the house trying to understand what had gone wrong with their operation. The early arrival of police meant that Vincent's criminals would be caught red-handed with their weapons and the evidence of their attempted murder. Vincent Russo looked around the destroyed living room with growing panic and confusion. The physical evidence clearly indicated that Marcus had fired multiple shots at the front window, and the shattered mirror fragments showed where the bullets had struck. But the complete absence of any victim contradicted everything Vincent knew about professional assassinations. Marcus was one of the most reliable killers Vincent had ever employed, and the idea that he could have missed such an easy target seemed impossible. Marcus Webb was equally confused by the situation he found himself in. Through his rifle scope, he had clearly seen Maya Chen sitting in her chair when he fired. His shots had been perfectly aimed, and he had watched her image disappear when the bullet struck. But now, examining the scene from inside the house, Marcus could find no evidence that anyone had been in the room when he fired. The lack of blood, tissue, or any other biological evidence suggested that he had been shooting at nothing. Tony Castellano's experience as a former crime scene investigator was creating additional problems for Vincent's team. Tony could see immediately that the physical evidence at the scene didn't match what should be present after a successful assassination. The bullet trajectory analysis showed that the shots had struck the mirror and the wall behind it, but there were no impact patterns that would be consistent with bullets passing through a human body first. As police sirens grew louder in the distance, Vincent realized that his team was about to be trapped in a house with overwhelming evidence of their criminal activity. The weapons they carried, their presence at the scene, and the obvious signs of gunfire would be impossible to explain to investigators. Vincent began frantically issuing orders for his team to prepare for immediate extraction, but the approaching police sirens indicated that escape might no longer be possible. Officer Martinez was joined by 3 additional patrol units within 2 minutes of her arrival, giving police sufficient manpower to surround the house and prevent any escape attempts. Sergeant Michael Rodriguez took command of the scene and began coordinating the tactical response to what appeared to be an active shooter situation. The responding officers could see armed individuals moving inside the house, and the shattered front window provided clear evidence that gunfire had occurred. Maya watched the police response unfold through her security cameras while remaining hidden in her basement command center. She could see officers positioning themselves around her house and coordinating their approach to the building. Maya knew that she would need to reveal herself soon to prevent any confusion about her identity or status, but she wanted to ensure that Vincent's team was fully committed to their current position before emerging from hiding. The radio communications Maya was monitoring revealed the growing desperation of Vincent's team as they realized they were trapped. Vincent was demanding explanations from Marcus about how he could have missed such an easy target, while Tony was reporting that the physical evidence at the scene didn't support their belief that Maya had been killed. The intercepted communications provided additional proof of their criminal conspiracy and their intent to commit murder. Detective James Morrison had been called to respond to the scene based on the unusual nature of the situation reported by the first responding officers. Morrison's 20-year career had included investigations of organized crime and professional assassinations, giving him the experience necessary to understand the significance of what was unfolding at Maya's house. Morrison recognized immediately that this was not a typical domestic dispute or random crime. Maya decided that the time had come to reveal herself to police and begin the process of presenting the evidence she had gathered. She activated her emergency communication system to contact Sergeant Rodriguez directly, identifying herself as the homeowner and providing her exact location in the basement. Maya explained briefly that she was unharmed and had been hiding from armed intruders who had attempted to kill her. The revelation that Maya Chen was alive and had been hiding in her basement while police surrounded her house created immediate confusion among the responding officers. Sergeant Rodriguez had been preparing for a potential hostage situation or active shooter scenario, not a case where the supposed victim had successfully evaded assassination and was serving as a witness to the crime. This development required a complete reassessment of the tactical situation. Maya's emergence from her basement hiding place was carefully coordinated with police to ensure there would be no confusion about her identity or intentions. She followed Sergeant Rodriguez's instructions precisely, keeping her hands visible and moving slowly to avoid any possibility of being mistaken for a threat. Maya carried with her a portable hard drive containing the evidence she had gathered and a detailed written summary of Vincent's criminal organization. Vincent Russo's realization that Maya Chen was alive represented the complete failure of his assassination plot and the potential exposure of his entire criminal enterprise. The evidence Maya had gathered over 3 months, combined with the attempted murder charge his team now faced, represented an existential threat to everything Vincent had built. His organization's survival now depended on eliminating Maya before she could testify, but with police surrounding the house, Vincent found himself trapped with no viable options. Detective James Morrison was called to the scene at 12:15 a.m., and what he found defied logical explanation. 3 armed suspects were in custody. There was clear evidence of gunfire and attempted murder, but the supposed victim was very much alive and had apparently orchestrated one of the most sophisticated self-defense schemes ever documented. It wasn't until Maya Chen emerged from her basement hiding spot at 12:30 a.m. that the impossible puzzle began to make sense. Maya calmly explained her elaborate deception to the stunned detective, walking him through each component of her plan with the precision of an engineering presentation. She showed Morrison the destroyed antique mirror, the carefully calculated lighting system, and the basement position from which she had orchestrated everything. Detective Morrison realized he was looking at one of the most sophisticated criminal deceptions ever attempted, but this time it had been used by the victim rather than the perpetrator. The evidence Maya had gathered over 3 months was staggering in its scope and detail. Her portable hard drives contained financial records showing millions of dollars in money laundering operations, encrypted communications documenting Vincent's criminal activities, and surveillance footage connecting his organization to numerous unsolved crimes. Maya had essentially conducted a one-person investigation that surpassed anything law enforcement had been able to accomplish against Vincent's organization. Morrison's initial reaction was disbelief that a civilian could have planned and executed such a complex operation without any law enforcement training or support. Maya's technical expertise had allowed her to penetrate security systems that had frustrated FBI investigators for years. Her understanding of criminal psychology had enabled her to predict Vincent's actions with remarkable accuracy. Most importantly, her courage in using herself as bait had created an opportunity to gather evidence that would have been impossible to obtain through traditional investigative methods. The recordings from Maya's hidden cameras captured everything that had occurred during the assassination attempt. The footage clearly showed Marcus Webb taking deliberate aim at what he believed was a human target and firing with lethal intent. Vincent Russo's voice could be heard on the radio communications directing the operation and congratulating Marcus on what he believed was a successful kill. Tony Castellano was recorded entering Maya's house and attempting to manipulate the crime scene to support their cover story. Maya's explanation of her optical illusion amazed the forensic experts who were called to examine the scene. The antique mirror had been positioned at precisely the right angle to reflect light from hidden LED strips in the basement, creating a convincing image of someone sitting in the living room chair. The physics principles Maya had employed dated back to 19th century stage magic, but she had applied them with modern precision and technology to create an illusion sophisticated enough to fool professional assassins. Detective Morrison realized that Maya's case represented a turning point in how law enforcement could approach both victim protection and criminal investigation. Maya had demonstrated that potential victims could use technology and intelligence to protect themselves while simultaneously gathering evidence against their attackers. The Maya Chen protocol that would later be developed by police academies across the country had its origins in this night's extraordinary events. The most impressive aspect of Maya's plan was the multiple layers of protection and evidence gathering she had built into her system. Even if one component had failed, she had backup systems and alternative approaches that could still have saved her life and provided evidence against Vincent's organization. Maya had thought through every possible contingency and prepared responses that demonstrated both technical expertise and remarkable foresight. Maya's basement command center revealed the extent of her preparation and the sophistication of her intelligence-gathering operation. Multiple monitors displayed feeds from 8 different security cameras, while recording equipment captured audio from throughout her house and radio communications from Vincent's team. The technical setup rivaled anything used by professional law enforcement surveillance teams, but Maya had assembled it entirely on her own using commercially available equipment. The psychological impact of Maya's deception on Vincent's team was evident in their behavior after they realized she was alive. Vincent Russo, who had built his reputation on careful planning and flawless execution, appeared to be in complete shock that he had been outsmarted by his intended victim. Marcus Webb insisted repeatedly that his shots had been perfect, unable to accept that he had been shooting at an illusion rather than a real person. Detective Morrison's investigation quickly expanded beyond the attempted murder charge as the scope of Maya's evidence became clear. The information she had gathered connected Vincent's organization to drug trafficking, money laundering, murder for hire, and numerous other serious crimes spanning multiple jurisdictions. Federal agencies were called in to coordinate what would become one of the largest organized crime prosecutions in the region's history. Maya's decision to record everything that happened during the assassination attempt provided prosecutors with unprecedented evidence of criminal conspiracy and attempted murder. The recordings captured not just the physical actions of Vincent's team but their conversations about previous crimes and their casual attitude toward murder. This evidence would prove crucial in demonstrating the organized and professional nature of their criminal activities. The technical analysis of Maya's illusion system provided valuable insights for law enforcement agencies dealing with increasing. Maya had demonstrated that modern technology could be used creatively to turn criminals' own methods against them. Her approach of using surveillance and deception to gather evidence while protecting herself opened new possibilities for civilian cooperation with law enforcement in dangerous situations. Maya's 3 months of preparation had included contingency plans for numerous scenarios, including the possibility that Vincent's team might discover her deception before police arrived. She had prepared multiple escape routes from her basement position and had established secure communication channels with law enforcement that bypassed potentially compromised official channels. Every aspect of her plan demonstrated careful attention to detail and thorough understanding of the risks she was facing. The evidence Maya gathered led to solving 17 other cases that had been linked to Vincent's organization, providing closure for families who had been waiting years for justice. Her technical expertise and investigative skills had accomplished what entire law enforcement task forces had been unable to achieve. 6 months later, Maya would receive a commendation from the mayor and would be offered a position as a consultant with the police department's cybercrime unit. The case became legendary within law enforcement circles as the most sophisticated civilian self-defense operation ever documented. Maya Chen had managed to fake her own death so convincingly that even trained killers believed they had succeeded, while simultaneously gathering evidence that led to the arrest and conviction of Vincent Russo's entire criminal organization. The antique mirror that had made it all possible was eventually donated to the police academy as a teaching tool about the importance of thorough crime scene investigation and the creative application of technology in law enforcement. Maya's quick thinking and technical expertise had not only saved her life but had also prevented Vincent's crew from harming anyone else. The evidence she gathered over 3 months of investigation led to solving numerous cold cases that had been frustrating investigators for years. Vincent Russo's organization had been responsible for at least 19 murders, 12 kidnappings, and financial crimes totaling over $75 million. Maya's single-handed investigation had accomplished more than multiple law enforcement agencies working together had managed to achieve. The trial proceedings that followed Maya's dramatic night became a media sensation, largely due to the unprecedented nature of her survival story and the sophisticated criminal network she had exposed.
Prosecutors had overwhelming evidence thanks to Maya's meticulous documentation, including video recordings of the assassination attempt, financial records proving money laundering operations, and communications intercepts that revealed the scope of Vincent's criminal activities. Vincent Russo's psychological breakdown during the trial was complete and devastating. The man who had built his reputation on careful planning and flawless execution could not cope with the reality that he had been outsmarted by his intended victim. Vincent's confession during the trial proceedings provided closure for families of victims in cases dating back nearly a decade. His admission to ordering 19 murders shocked even seasoned law enforcement officials who had been tracking his organization. Marcus Webb received a sentence of 40 years in federal prison for attempted murder and conspiracy charges. His military training, which had made him such an effective killer, became evidence of the professional nature of Vincent's assassination operations. Marcus never fully accepted that he had been shooting at an illusion rather than a real person, insisting even during his sentencing that his shots had been perfect. Tony Castellano's background as a former crime scene investigator made his participation in Vincent's organization particularly damaging to public trust in law enforcement. His sentencing included additional charges related to evidence tampering in previous cases he had investigated while working for the police department. Tony's conviction led to the reopening of dozens of cases he had handled, resulting in several additional prosecutions and convictions. The technical analysis of Maya's deception system led to significant advances in both criminal investigation techniques and civilian protection. The physics principles she had employed were studied by bio-optical engineers and stage magicians alike, leading to new applications in security systems and surveillance technology. Maya's approach demonstrated that sophisticated deception could be achieved using relatively simple equipment when applied with scientific precision and creative thinking. Maya's decision to remain with the police department's cybercrime unit proved beneficial for both her career and law enforcement efforts. Her unique combination of technical skills and investigative experience made her invaluable in cases involving organized crime and technology-based offenses. Maya helped develop new protocols for civilian witnesses in dangerous situations and contributed to training programs for officers dealing with sophisticated criminal organizations. The Maya Chen protocol developed by police academies became standard training for officers responding to potentially complex crime scenes. Maya's case demonstrated the importance of thoroughly examining physical evidence and not making assumptions about what had occurred based on initial observations. Her deception had been so convincing that even experienced investigators might have missed crucial details without proper analysis. The Federal Bureau of Investigation created a special task force to study Maya's investigation methods and evidence-gathering techniques. Her ability to penetrate Vincent's organization's security systems provided valuable insights into how civilian experts could assist law enforcement in cases involving sophisticated criminal networks. Maya's approach became a model for cooperative investigations between law enforcement and private technical. Maya's story attracted international attention from law enforcement agencies dealing with organized crime and assassination networks. Her methods were studied by security experts in multiple countries, leading to new approaches for protecting witnesses and gathering evidence in dangerous situations. Maya received invitations to speak at international conferences on cybercrime and civilian security, sharing her experiences with law enforcement worldwide. The antique mirror that had been central to Maya's deception became a symbol of creative problem-solving and resourcefulness in the face of deadly threats. The mirror's display at the National Law Enforcement Museum included a detailed explanation of the optical principles Maya had employed and the engineering precision required to create such a convincing illusion. Visitors could experience a demonstration of how the mirror system worked, though obviously without the life-threatening context of Maya's situation. Maya's 3 months of preparation and her successful execution of the plan demonstrated that ordinary citizens could protect themselves against sophisticated threats when they combined intelligence, technical skills, and careful planning. Her story became an inspiration for other potential victims of organized crime, showing that even professional killers could be defeated through creativity and determination. The lasting impact of Maya's case extended far beyond the specific convictions of Vincent's organization. Her methods influenced how law enforcement agencies approach technology-based investigations and civilian cooperation in dangerous cases. Maya had proven that sometimes the best defense against professional criminals was making them defeat themselves through their own overconfidence and predictable methods. Vincent Russo, Marcus Webb, and Tony Castellano were each sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. They had shot her reflection, but Maya Chen was never in the room, and that made all the difference between justice and tragedy. Maya's story became a testament to the power of intelligence, preparation, and courage in the face of seemingly impossible odds. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.